Tonight on Chat News at 5, proof of vaccination. Locally owned businesses are working to keep their doors open, whether they opt into the government's new program or not. And long-term forecast.
We're undertaking this community engagement process to talk to our major stakeholders, the community at large, and determine what are our needs going forward.
The city is putting together a plan for the future of Medicine Hat's aging recreational facilities.
Plus, in sports, as training camp rolls on, the Medicine Hat Tigers will follow a proof of vaccine policy for fans this season.
From Medicine Hat, this is the Chat Evening News with Dan Reynish.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for watching. Last night, Premier Jason Kenney apologized for moving too quickly to declare the pandemic was over. But he did not apologize for lifting almost all of the public health restrictions in early July as he unveiled several new restrictions. The changes include a new proof of vaccination program, once again affecting restaurants and retail stores. But for some Medicine Hat operations, the plan is to try to keep things mostly business as usual. Darren Rathwell reports.
COVID rules continue to shift in Alberta, and Luwanda Whaley has a new measure to face. Will she opt into the new restrictions exemptions program for business? Her answer?
We'll operate as normal. We'll continue to sanitize and keep distance. That's the best that we can do.
Under the new proof of vaccination program announced by Premier Kenney last night, retail outlets that allow only vaccinated customers can operate as per usual. Those who don't are only supposed to operate at 30% capacity. But Whaley, who owns the Altruist Market on 3rd Street South, says she doesn't anticipate much change.
Well, given the market, we rarely have 30% of capacity anyway. So I don't think that it's going to be a huge effect on me. And I can't see it being a huge effect on a lot of small business.
But Surav Saha isn't going to take that chance.
We got to do what we got to do. Now we have to respect the health measures.
The owner of the Rosewood Bistro on North Railway just opened the restaurant in February, and it's been a roller coaster of change.
I had to lay off every worker because it was only takeout, and we didn't get even one order for takeout. I am going to opt in for this program so that I can have employment for all my team members and I don't have to close the business.
The owner of the Grit City Distillery, meanwhile, says he's ready to flow with the changes, but that's not to say it's going to be easy.
It's an awkward situation, and I feel that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to have a hard time with that, and we're certainly not looking forward to making anyone angry. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
But Schmunk also has appreciation for those who follow the rules without problem. And at Rosewood Bistro, Surav says he too is grateful for past support by customers, including those who use his patio in cold weather.
They came with blankets and toques just to support us because they knew how difficult or how hurting it is for us.
And an ongoing show of support is what these local businesses continue to hope for. Darren Rathwell, Chat News.
Funeral homes and fitness studios have been operating under health measures throughout the pandemic. Some Medicine Hat businesses say the new guidelines won't have an impact. Others will have to navigate new rules. Tegan Rasha has this story.
Implementing the vaccine exemption program is a no-brainer for Sabrina Moore. It's something the Collective Cycle owner announced just hours after the provincial news conference.
I was very excited in that we can still remain open, frustrated in that the government has put the onus on the actual business owners to make that judgment call. But for me, it was a very easy decision because it's a matter of me having to close my doors once again or staying open.
Collective was impacted by the pandemic, being closed almost the whole time. Space limitations prevented more from opening back up, even when other fitness studios were given the green light. But one place that won't be as affected by the new rules are funeral homes.
It won't be as dramatic a change, other than we'll have to deal with numbers.
Starting September 20th, indoor funeral services are limited to 50 attendees or 50% fire code capacity, whatever is less. And outdoor funerals are limited to 200 people. John Cameron Davis from Samus Memorial Funeral Chapel says they've always kept with the protocols because they deal with a vulnerable population.
With regards to services, we've always encouraged social distancing and things of that nature.
One thing that became a big part of funerals during the pandemic is streaming. As an essential business with hundreds of services a year, it's something Davis says will continue.
I found situations where we'll have a service with 60 or 70 people at it. There could be like 150 log-ons. So there are people who are making that choice to participate, but participate through streaming.
Businesses are hopeful that this is the last time they'll have to adapt to new rules. At Collective, Moore says she's had an overwhelmingly positive response about requiring customers to show proof of vaccination. And she's excited to welcome more riders back.
Yeah, I'm hoping that after this is now going to be incorporated, that we'll be able to have a jump in our numbers once again.
Tegan Rasha, Chat News.
Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health says this latest round of restrictions is generating a ton of questions. Many are wondering why there are limits on outdoor social gatherings for those who are fully vaccinated. Dr. Dina Hinshaw says that's a fair question.
The answer is that our healthcare system is straining to treat the number of COVID-19 cases we currently have in Alberta. While close to 78% of the cases currently in hospital, including ICUs, are unvaccinated or only partially vaccinated, that still leaves 22% of those in hospital who are fully vaccinated.
AHS says an internal planning document has been shared publicly suggesting Alberta is days away from ICUs being overwhelmed. Dr. Verna Hughes says there are severe challenges, but teams are finding ways to increase capacity. This includes looking at opening spaces for ICU beds in operating or recovery rooms. Patients are being discharged to continuing care facilities that may be outside their community or health zone. Surgeries continue to be cancelled, and discussions are underway with Ontario about possibly transferring patients to that province.
I cannot stress enough how serious the situation is in our hospitals. I promise you that we will continue to do all that we can to provide the care to Albertans. I also cannot stress enough that we need your help. Please get immunized.
896 Albertans are currently in hospitals across the province with COVID-19, 222 in the ICUs. Well, as expected, a frost advisory is in place for all of our area and, in fact, most of Alberta. Temperatures will start to warm up again tomorrow, but in the overnight period, we could get to 0 and below. Right now, still below seasonal average. We got to 16. It is 16, and the wind continues to push its way from the north. It's a west-northwesterly wind at 43 kilometers an hour. And the overnight period and tomorrow, that'll become a southerly wind, causing temperatures to warm up. But in that overnight period, that frost advisory is in effect. The full AccuWeather forecast coming up in just a few minutes after we enjoy more of this windy Broadway Avenue scene here on Chat News at 5. Coming up, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe has announced new measures as COVID numbers surge there as well. Brooks Medicine Hat MLA Michaela Glasgow says she, quote, hates the decision had to be made by the government to implement new health restrictions yesterday. She says the government's decision to require proof of vaccination for Alberta services and venues is not a decision anyone came to lightly. The UCP MLA says it shouldn't have come to this, but hopes the restrictions will help reduce strain on the healthcare system and get it back in line. She says she couldn't live with herself if people had to be turned away from ICUs.
I respect the decision that leadership has made because I know that it's not one that came too lightly. I was in Calgary a few times over the past couple of weeks talking about these things with leadership, and I can say that it's not a decision that anybody wanted to make. And at the end of the day, I apologize to my constituents that we misled them. I apologize to my constituents that this isn't what it was supposed to be, and I will do everything that I can to make sure that they have the most information possible.
Glasgow is on the record as being fully vaccinated and says more people need to get vaccinated so the pressure can be taken off the healthcare system and keep businesses open. Cyprus Medicine Hat MLA Drew Barnes does not share Glasgow's opinion on vaccinations. He would only go so far as to recommend and ask all Albertans to talk to their family doctor and healthcare workers and make their decision individually. He has refused to disclose his vaccination status and says immunization is a personal choice for everyone to make. The independent MLA wants more rapid testing available for those who choose not to get vaccinated and says proof of vaccination will segregate Albertans.
I am not in favor of vaccination passports. No, I believe that, again, the Premier has totally missed the balance between our civil liberties and keeping us safe. And also we're in a situation where, we're dividing society.
Mr. Barnes added, Jason Kenney has lost the trust and confidence of Albertans. The number of active COVID-19 cases is going down here in Medicine Hat, but the number of deaths continues to rise in our city. 3 more people from Medicine Hat have died in the past 24 hours from COVID-19. We currently have 560 active cases in our city. There are 36 inpatients at Medicine Hat Regional Hospital with 8 in the ICU. Among Hatters 12 and over, 75% have received at least 1 dose of a vaccine and 67.6% are fully vaccinated. There are 1,718 new cases in the province over the past 24 hours and 709 more variant of concern cases have been identified. The province completed 16,364 tests in the past 24 hours. The positivity rate is about 10.5%. All the latest numbers can be found on our website. Just head to chatnewstoday.ca. In Saskatchewan, a surge in COVID-19 cases has prompted the province to bring in new measures. The province has announced a proof of vaccination system aimed at the unvaccinated, who Premier Scott Moe says are driving the 4th wave of COVID-19. People will be required to show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test to enter several businesses, establishments, and event venues starting October 1st. A proof of vaccination or negative test requirement will also be implemented for all provincial and Crown employees. Moe is also reinstating a province-wide mask mandate for all indoor public places starting tomorrow, but says it could be lifted by late October. Saskatchewan reported more than 400 new cases of COVID-19 for a 5th straight day. There were 439 new cases today. The province has 218 people with COVID-19 being treated in hospital, including 48 in intensive care. A long-term forecast for Medicine Hat's parks and recreation is being put together at City Hall. It looks 50 years into the future, and potential changes are on the table to deal with the city's aging recreational facilities. With more, here's Darren Rathwell.
What to do with this storied recreational facility? The Crestwood Rec Center remains closed, never reopening after it was shut down at the start of the pandemic. The center just one of many facilities under review as part of a plan for the future.
We're undertaking this community engagement process to talk to our major stakeholders, the community at large, and determine what are our needs going forward.
The question in some cases is whether to close or update the facilities.
We don't have a predetermined outcome as far as do we close places like Hill Pool. That is certainly a possibility.
Also a possibility is consolidation of all outdoor pools in Medicine Hat.
We already have the infrastructure, so I don't know why you'd want to just put them all in one building.
The Moose Recreation Center is another facility that remains closed following the pandemic start. It needs an ice slab replacement worth $1.2 million. Councillor Chris Samraj says building a new multi-rink facility would be more cost-effective.
Even if you live near a rink, it's unlikely that you're going to walk there because of all the equipment that you have. So, I mean, I think there is something to be said about multi-sheet rinks.
But some nearby residents to the Moose would like the doors to swing back open.
Nobody blocks my driveway. Everybody's good. It's good to go.
I really think that the city should use the old rinks and old premises that's available.
The issue now finding traction on the campaign trail. This tweet by Aldermanic candidate Alison Van Dyke questioning the cost effectiveness for those who would use new multi-use facilities.
We do need to save money given the city's financial picture. But yeah, I mean, I do like things in neighborhoods.
Facilities aren't the only matter of concern. Echodale Park is included in this review, where the city report recommends changes like high-end camping and an amphitheater. A number of options are on the table for the present and upcoming city councils, who will seek more public input. And so the future is uncertain, except that change could be coming. Darren Rathwell, Chat News.
More news after this break here on Chat News at 5. Please stay with us. Straight ahead, with no more contact tracing in schools, communication has become critical. With Alberta declaring a state of public health emergency and Premier Jason Kenney reluctantly implementing a vaccine passport system, today on the campaign trail, leader Justin Trudeau was asked why he didn't intervene sooner. Tory leader Erin O'Toole has previously applauded Premier Kenney's pandemic response, but in the wake of Alberta's state of emergency, O'Toole dodged question after question on whether this is still the case. And NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is promising to push for military support. Coming up in about 15 minutes here on Chat News at 5, we'll hear from all three along the election campaign trail today. There are some new rules for those in the classroom, including mandatory masks for grades 4 through 12 and cohort groups for elementary school. But there's still no provincial contact tracing in classrooms. And as Nicole Stilger reports, that means communication between families and staff at schools has become critical.
We know we're not getting the full story.
Advocacy group Support Our Students says when it comes to COVID and schools, there are serious information gaps right now.
A parent volunteering information to the school, that's not an obligation. So that's going to fall through the cracks. And then the school's not obligated to tell the parents that could be affected by that positive case.
Unlike last school year, Alberta Health Services is no longer informing schools of individual COVID cases. Instead, schools are expected to let AHS know when 10% of students are absent because they may be sick. AHS will then investigate and may declare an outbreak. Based on community submissions, SOS estimates there are about 36 schools in Alberta with an outbreak.
The fact that it's only been 2 weeks and we still have this large number is quite concerning.
In a letter to parents Wednesday, Edmonton Catholic Schools says it's been given authority by the Alberta government to exceed provincial guidelines to best serve and meet the needs of its schools. And in light of the evolving circumstances, it will start sending notifications home should a case of COVID-19 be reported to school administration. The Edmonton Public School Board has similar guidelines. At the start of the year, that division has been asking families to notify their school about a positive COVID case confirmed by AHS. That information is then shared with the class and school community, keeping personal information confidential.
There's a lot of school boards that don't have the resources to do thorough contact tracing, and not at their own fault. They just are under-resourced and understaffed already.
Now, the province is no longer posting school outbreaks on its website and has previously said it is working on a reporting framework, but it's not clear what that will look like yet. Nicole Stilger, Global News.
Chat Weather, brought to you by Design Flooring Center, with you every step of the way.
Chat Weather, powered by AccuWeather.
A frost advisory is put in place at this time of year when there is a chance that temperatures will go below zero and thus possibly cause problems or damage to crops and plants. And as we sit here right now with the temperature getting ready to go below zero, with the wind chill, it felt like -2 this morning, but it might in fact get to -2 or colder. With that, the possibility, the reality, there is a frost advisory in effect right now for almost all of Alberta. So temperatures are going to be dropping at least to zero for us. Other parts of the province will get colder. Today, we got to 16. After this day, though, the wind direction is going to change. We'll get some southerly wind, meaning we're going to be warming up for a couple of days once we get through tomorrow morning. Still 15 out there right now under a mainly cloudy sky. The wind continuing to gust. It's going to be pretty windy over the next few days, maybe all the way through and including parts of Sunday. It's a west-northwesterly wind right now, sustained about 33 kilometers an hour. We have seen gusts up to 50 today. Right now, gusts are about 48.2 kilometers. Tomorrow, it becomes a southerly wind. So as I've been saying, warmer air is coming our way. 16, mainly sunny in Lethbridge and Bow Island, as well as Drumheller, Calgary, and Brooks are both 15. Edmonton 13, mainly sunny everywhere with clouds pushing in, pushy clouds every now and then. Over in Saskatchewan, the clouds have taken over in Saskatoon and it's 7 degrees, 14 in Leader and Maple Creek with a mix of sun and cloud, 13 in Swift Current with a mix, and in Regina, mainly sunny and 15 degrees. So the radar not showing too many clouds out there, even though some areas are dealing with them. Certainly not showing any precipitation. Even the wet stuff that was falling in the mountains has stopped by late this afternoon. And as we go into the futurecast, you can see there's a lot more coming. The Pacific coast is going to get hit with a lot of rain. In fact, the lower mainland could potentially see some very heavy rain showers. You see the black pushing in there, and that will likely stop before it gets over the mountains to us. But that front that is coming through, pushing over the mountains, is likely to bring some clouds and maybe some rain for us on Sunday into Monday. But between now and Sunday into Monday, well, stick around for the 7-day forecast. We might even get over 25 this weekend, but there are lesser than nice days to come. Tomorrow, warming up to about 18 in Brooks after getting to about 14 today. There's how your day will start. Intermittent clouds and -1 degree. 2 on the plus side in Leader, but that will feel chillier than that. Maybe as cold as -2 or -3. 20 degrees, your daytime high with some intermittent clouds before the clouds take over there and in Maple Creek. 4 degrees, closer to 0 is what it'll feel like in the morning, up to 20 by the end of the day in Maple Creek. And we will have some clouds, but the clouds will keep whatever daytime warmth there is in, and the temperature up to 21 tomorrow, then 25 and beyond on Saturday before cooling off again on Sunday as that system pushes in. So if you have not gotten a chance to see a blue sky today, how about we show you one now? And I'm not just talking about a great Chinese restaurant either. I love the comment that George sent us in on this one. Nothing but a blue sky and a bird. George, thanks for this picture. Fantastic. At one point I had to scroll down. I have some dirt on my computer screen, so I thought maybe there was some dirt on your lens as well, but there's not. This picture brought to us by Prestige Windows and Doors. George sent it into weatherpics@chatnewstoday.ca. George, thank you again. Weatherpics@chatnewstoday.ca is where you could send your weather photos if you have some pictures of weather or a bird. Much more to come tonight here on Chat News at 5. Please stay with us. Still to come, Alberta took center stage on the campaign trail today with less than a week to go. Good evening on this Thursday night. I'm Dan Reynish, and you're watching Chat News at 5. With our province declaring a public health emergency last night, the COVID crisis here in Alberta took center stage on the federal election campaign trail today. Miranda Anthistle takes a look now at how the party leaders reacted with less than a week until the election.
With Alberta's healthcare system on the verge of collapse, the province is declaring a state of public health emergency, and Premier Jason Kenney reluctantly implementing a vaccine passport system.
If Alberta had moved forward when other provinces were doing it, things might be better right now.
In Montreal, Quebec, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau was asked why he didn't intervene sooner to avoid this emergency.
It's not my job to judge or to criticize or to certainly not to tell people what to do at the provinces. They are duly elected.
But at the federal level, Trudeau says there's only one right choice for a leader who can tackle the COVID-19 crisis.
Do we stand up even stronger in our fight against this pandemic? Or do we give in to the anti-vaxxers in the Conservative Party and go ahead with half measures?
Tory leader Aaron O'Toole has previously applauded Premier Kenney's pandemic response. In the wake of Alberta's state of emergency, O'Toole dodged question after question on whether this is still the case.
I support the provinces in their efforts to try and fight COVID-19. I will have strong relationships with all premiers, regardless of stripe.
O'Toole instead put Trudeau's leadership under the microscope.
And the fact that we're in an election, a $600 million election because of Mr. Trudeau's own political interest, shows that he's not going to put the health and economic needs of the country first.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is promising to push for military support in the province, saying the health crisis is a colossal failure of leadership at all levels.
Absolutely, Mr. Kenney is to blame. Mr. Trudeau contributed to the problem by calling the election. And right now we could be in Ottawa passing legislation to help out Albertans, making decisions to help out Alberta, to help the people. But instead, we're in the midst of an election that Mr. Trudeau called for no reason.
Miranda Anthistle, Global News.
Brampton, Ontario is home to just under 600,000 people. It's the 9th largest city in Canada, but there's only one hospital. Opened just 14 years ago, Brampton Civic Hospital was bursting at the seams even before the pandemic. Tonight, Jeff Semple takes us inside this hospital, which COVID-19 has pushed to the breaking point.
Staff at Brampton Civic Hospital are constantly on the move. This emergency physician is juggling 16 patients, only a couple of whom have COVID-19.
The usual illness that we saw dip during the pandemic, those illnesses are coming back.
Patients, particularly children, arriving with flu-like illness. While others, like this 50-year-old woman with an advanced lung infection, avoided coming to hospital during the pandemic. She's now rushed to the ICU.
We're seeing volumes there like we've never seen really in history, actually. And within the ICU, I think we're starting to see those COVID cases rise.
This hospital was one of the hardest hit by the first waves of the pandemic. The region, home to a large number of immigrants and essential workers, had Ontario's most COVID cases per capita. And in a city the size of Vancouver, more than 600,000 residents, this is the only hospital. Even prior to the pandemic, Brampton Civic was one of the busiest hospitals in Ontario. Its average hospital occupancy before COVID-19 was nearly 109%.
We knew we had to do something.
This Brampton City Councillor moved a motion last year, days before Canada's first confirmed case of COVID-19, to declare a healthcare emergency.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carries unanimously.
We were so stretched and our capacity was so overwhelmed, and COVID has only expanded that tenfold.
Brampton is one of Canada's fastest growing cities, but healthcare funding has failed to keep pace. When the pandemic hit, the hospital found itself caring for the most COVID patients with the fewest hospital beds.
It was not uncommon that I would see someone who was dying and at end of life in the hallway.
This doctor left the hospital in April after 15 years. Even prior to the pandemic, staff treated more than 4,000 patients a year in hospital hallways.
Before elections, politicians, I remember, would come to our hospital and hold press conferences about ending hallway medicine, but the action never really happened. And the story of Brampton, I feel, is largely the story of many people who are new immigrants to Canada, who faced inequities in the healthcare system, which is grossly underfunded.
Last spring, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford announced a hospital expansion that will include 250 new hospital beds and a second emergency department for Brampton.
From Brampton, Ontario, we head across the Atlantic to France now, where 3,000 healthcare workers have been suspended for not getting vaccinated. Jim Bitterman reports.
After weeks of warnings from the government, about 3,000 healthcare workers were suspended this morning from their jobs in hospitals and old age homes because they have not started vaccination programs. The health minister, in making the announcement, said the 3,000 is only a small fraction of the 2.7 million people who work in the healthcare sector. And he said that, in fact, most of those who are suspended are in support jobs, not necessarily dealing directly with patients. And he also said that he thinks that the 3,000 will be temporary suspensions because, in fact, people will get their vaccinations once they realize that the government is very serious about its vaccination mandates. He also added this. He said, we are a country of rights and obligations. Healthcare workers have an avocation to save the sick because healthcare workers have always acted responsibly. Jim Bitterman, CNN, Paris.
For the first time ever, a human space flight is in high Earth orbit without a trained astronaut on board. The world's first all-civilian crew blasted off early this morning. The crew of Inspiration 4 is led by billionaire Jared Isaacman, who funded the flight. Kristen Fisher has details from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Well, it was a spectacular and successful nighttime launch from the Kennedy Space Center. And what makes this Inspiration 4 mission so extraordinary is just how ordinary the crew is. None of them are professional astronauts, and yet they're going to be orbiting the Earth for the next 3 days before splashing down in the Atlantic Ocean. On board, a 29-year-old pediatric cancer survivor and physician's assistant at St. Jude's Children's Hospital. There's also Dr. Cyan Proctor, who applied to be an astronaut back in 2009, came this close, didn't quite make the cut. She was devastated. Now she gets to achieve her lifelong dream. There's also Chris Simbrowski, who was watching a Super Bowl commercial for this mission. He entered a sweepstakes. His friend got the golden ticket, but gave it to him. That's how he ended up on board. And finally, the commander, Jared Isaacman, a billionaire businessman, an entrepreneur, a pilot, and he's really the brainchild for this mission. He went to SpaceX back in October about something totally different, mentioned in a passing comment, hey, if you ever want to send me into space, I'd be game. And now, here he is in orbit less than a year later.
I wouldn't say pressure, because pressure would mean like I'm nervous about the outcome here. I think that responsibility is really the word, right? And that this is a big responsibility, and we have to execute really well and get this right so that the door can stay open for all the other missions to follow.
Jared Isaacman talks a lot about opening up space travel to everyone and democratizing space, and that's really central to SpaceX's founding mission, which is to make humanity multi-planetary, to colonize Mars. And so in order to do that, you have to prove that your everyday person is capable of dealing with the rigors of orbital spaceflight, and that is exactly what the Inspiration 4 crew is going to spend the next several days doing. At the Kennedy Space Center, Kristen Fisher, CNN.
We'll be right back with Mike LaCour and a look at what's up in the hat this weekend, and Scott Roblin with tonight's sports report.
Edmonton Elks quarterback Trevor Harris will be on the shelf for the foreseeable future. More on his injury situation when we return.
Chat Sports, brought to you by the Landscape Depot. Quality landscape supplies. Get creative in your outdoor living space with the Landscape Depot.
Welcome back. With just days to go before their preseason begins, the Medicine Hat Tigers have announced their policy for fans to attend games at Co-op Place this season. In collaboration with the Lethbridge Hurricanes and Red Deer Rebels, the Tigers say they will be following the province's COVID-19 restriction exemption program. That means starting Monday, fans will have to provide either proof of full COVID-19 vaccination, a negative COVID test from a paid provider within 72 hours of a game, or proof of a single dose of vaccination from at least 2 weeks prior to puck drop. That option will only be available until October 25th. Either electronic or paper copies will be accepted, though this policy will not apply for the Tigers' preseason game on Saturday nights. Masks are still required to be worn as per the provincial mandate. To the ice, and the Tabbies are wrapping up training camp today. Sophomore Oasis Weisblatt is looking to take advantage of a bigger role on the Tigers this season after registering 2 goals and 5 points in his rookie season in the dub. Medicine Hat's first rounder from 2019 is entering his NHL draft year and has been leaning on his brother and San Jose Sharks prospect Ozzy.
Just kind of get some tips and tricks off him, I guess, and just kind of see how he went through with the situation, and just do the best I can every night and put the work in the gym.
16-year-old Reed Andreessen is also a prime candidate to have a breakout season for Medicine Hats. The blue liner benefited from a one-season change to the WHL's rules last spring, which allowed him to become the first rostered 15-year-old Tiger in decades. Aside from his size, Andreessen didn't look out of place at all with 5 points in 11 games of action, and he says his summer was spent packing on some muscle to endure a full 68-game season.
I tried to get stronger as much as I could. I tried to gain some weight. I also skated lots, working on stick handling, shooting, skating, all that stuff, just to prepare myself for this season.
The Tigers' final scrimmage of training camp goes tonight at 7 o'clock at Co-op Place and is open to the public. Their first preseason game is set for tomorrow night in Lethbridge, battling the Hurricanes. While it was a small amount of people who were able to watch it in person, the impact of last night's Medicine Hat Sports Wall of Fame induction ceremony will live on at the Family Leisure Center. 2 inductees were added to the wall, including Medicine Hat Boxing Club founder Bill Page. An Alberta Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Page was the face of boxing in our community for decades before passing away in 2016 at the age of 73. His wife Rosemary was on hand to accept the award and says it was a night that meant the world to the family.
There's just so many things that you think back and so many stories and everything. It's, you know, because when it was started, Ev Nyman had actually coached Bill when him and his brothers were young. So to start the club 46 years ago with Mr. Nyman was a real honor, and you know, he just couldn't quit.
Joining Paige are the Medicine Hat Hockey Hounds, who have promoted minor hockey in our community for over half a century. More than 200 members have come and gone over the years, but founding member Oris Tkaczyk was among those there to accept the honor last night.
It's tremendous, you know, to be recognized by the community, by the city, to be inducted, you know, as the first organization. And, you know, thinking back of the amount of volunteer hours that past and present members have had, I think it's very nice tribute.
The Hounds have also confirmed that they are still planning to host their famed Bantam tournament this November, which was canceled, of course, last year due to the pandemic. It's wheels up for the Calgary Stampeders as they are in Hamilton tomorrow night in search of a second straight road win. It's a tall order to fill, as the Tiger Cats haven't lost at home since November of 2018. What's giving the Stampeders confidence is their defensive tour de force against Edmonton last weekend. They sacked Trevor Harris 7 times, and Bo Levi Mitchell found his groove in the later stages of the game. And head coach Dave Dickinson says there isn't much he's looking to change in this critical Week 7 matchup.
You got to create momentum. You got to get on a roll a little bit. We're still in a situation we got to keep climbing, and not much was said, to be honest, because we know where we're at. We know where this team is, and we know we're getting better, but we also know there's a big challenge in front of us.
After the beating he took last weekend, it looks like the Elks will be without their pivot for the near future. Edmonton has placed Harris on the 6-game injured list with a neck injury. Although Harris was able to practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, the injury led to increased pain and other symptoms that forced his departure from practice. The Elks will likely go with rookie Taylor Cornelius on Saturday nights when they host the 5-1 Winnipeg Blue Bombers. As for the NFL, Week 2 action will begin this evening in a battle of NFC East teams. The New York Giants are in Washington to battle the Washington football team. One of these teams is going to get their first win of the season. Kickoff is set for 6:20 from FedEx Field. Meanwhile, some excellent results by local high school golfers at ASAA South Zone Championships in Tabor. Medicine Hat High School's Wyatt Bishop captured boys gold, shooting a 72 to win by 4 strokes. Jackson Bowl from the Monsignor McCoy Colts and W.R. Myers' Alex McCarchuk split the silver. On the girls' side, McCoy's Emma Hodgins shot a 91 to win the South Zone title, while Kiara Schick from Crescent Heights High finished with second place with a score of 96. Provincials will be held from September 27th to the 28th in Whitecourt and Entwistle. So great to see a couple of locals topping the leaderboard, and they're getting ready for provincials in just a couple of weeks.
Good luck to them. Hope they have a good time, and good luck to them all, as I said. And I know, Scott, you want to spend at least the next minute talking about the Giants taking on the Washington Football Club. It's rare early in the season you get a chance to talk about a game like that. But since the Stampeders are going to be in Hamilton and Tim Hortons Field, why don't we talk about something beautiful that's going to happen there next year? How about the Heritage Classic on Tim Hortons Field with the Maple Leafs taking on Buffalo, which is really nice to put those two teams there, because the NHL for years would never give Hamilton a team.
Yeah, it's going to be great for the Hamilton area to get a game of that magnitude. It's going to be a lot of eyes on the two teams. And, you know, for Buffalo, we'll see if Jack Eichel is still there for that game. I'm not betting on it, but definitely it's going to be awesome to see the Heritage Classic come back. It's just such a great event.
I saw the Heritage Classic game in Toronto when it was Toronto-Detroit a few years ago, and they're always a great time. If you wanted to go to one, try to find a way to go. But I think this one in Hamilton is going to be extra special because they love the Leafs, and I think some people in Hamilton like Buffalo as well.
Well, there are a lot of Buffalo fans in Southern Ontario, so it's definitely a good spot to have it for sure.
Buffalo, home of the Buffalo Wings. Oh, the Anchor Bar. I miss that place a lot. All right, thanks, Scott. Michael Kors up next with a look at what's up in the hat this weekend. When we return, an incredibly valuable painting from the 17th century has turned up in a small city in New York State. You're watching Chat News at 5. Here's a recap of today's top stories. Last night, Premier Jason Kenney apologized for moving too quickly to declare the pandemic was over, but not for lifting almost all the public health restrictions in early July. Now, those restrictions are back and a proof of vaccination system is being put in place. But some locally owned operators in Medicine Hat are planning for things to be business as usual, whether they opt into the new government program or not. One saying she doesn't anticipate much change. Another stating, we've got to do what we've got to do and we have to respect the health measures. The restrictions affecting restaurants, recreational facilities, weddings, and funerals begin Monday. A long-term forecast for Medicine Hat's Parks and Recreation is coming together at City Hall. Looking 50 years into the future, recommendations are on the table to deal with the city's aging recreational facilities. The question in some cases is whether to close, update, or consolidate the facilities. Echodale Park is also included in the review. The city report recommends adding high-end camping and an amphitheater there. The present and upcoming City Council will be seeking more public input on the plan. For more details on these and other stories, please visit our website. Just head to chatnewstoday.ca. If you need some ideas, here's Mike LaCour back to tell us what's up in the hat this weekend. Mike?
Dan, thanks very much. Nice to see you again. I've got a few things people can check out happening over the weekend and in the coming days. Starting with, at this moment, a preseason hockey game versus the Lethbridge Hurricanes happening this Saturday, where all proceeds go towards fundraising for urban minor hockey. Tickets are $20 each, with kids 5 and under getting in for free. Doors open at 6 and puck drops at 7 p.m. Get full details at the Urban Minor Hockey Bulldogs Facebook page. The 4th annual Run for Life starts up on Sunday and goes until September 26th. This virtual event is for raising awareness for suicide prevention. You can participate by doing any physical activities during the coming week, anytime or anywhere you are able. Go to suicideinfo.ca/runforlife for details and to register for the event. The Medicine Hat Radio Controllers are having their 3rd annual Festival of Flight Saturday and Sunday at the Len Young Memorial Field. Spectators are welcome to see some fun RC flying machines in action from some avid flyers. Gates open at 8 a.m. both days. Pilot fees are $10. Spectators get in for free. Find events happening around Medicine Hat at chatnewstoday.ca's event calendar page. And if you have an event you'd like us to feature on What's Up, please email us at chatnews@patisonmedia.com. Dan, back to you.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great night. An incredibly valuable painting from the 17th century has turned up at a church in the small city of New Rochelle, New York. Historians had been searching for it for roughly 50 years. That search might have continued forever if not for the keen eye of a local art professor. Karen Hua reports.
When you walk into the Ryan Library at Iona College, you and I probably can't tell what hangs here is worth more than the building itself. But Tom Ruggiero can.
I knew when I looked at it, I knew I was on a quest.
Ruggiero has been an art professor for nearly 2 decades. Occasionally, he goes to the Church of the Holy Family, a few blocks from Iona.
And I'd go in there just for some quiet, meditative moments. I'd sit in the back pew.
And from the back pew, this is usually in direct view.
One day, the lights were on a little brighter, and I saw that painting, and I was shocked. I immediately knew it was 17th century Italian.
Ruggiero pored over the research. He found corresponding images at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in Manhattan and in St. Petersburg, Russia. Finally, he connected the dots. This was done by Cesare Dandini, an artist from Florence. Art historians have been searching for it for about 50 years.
This painting was thought to be lost for decades, so it was hiding in plain sight, essentially, in New Rochelle.
The oil on canvas depicts the Holy Family, the Virgin Mary holding the Christ child next to Joseph and the infant St. John. And while Ruggiero has learned a lot, he says they're still unsure how exactly the painting got from Italy to New Rochelle.
We believe that it may have gotten here by way of Rome from a previous Monsignor, or it was donated from a family. We're hearing two conflicting stories. I think we pretty much scratched the surface on this one.
Okay, we're heading into a pretty chilly night with temperatures 0 and below, and then we warm up tomorrow and on Saturday. Very nice before temperatures get back to seasonal on Sunday. That's Chat News at 5 for tonight. I'm Dan Reynish. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.